Well, hello.
Hello.
So it has been a minute since we've done a craft on this channel, especially a Fairycore craft. And since it's starting to get cooler in most areas except for mine, I decided that it would be a grand idea to do a fall fairy craft.
I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth.
Now, if you've been on this channel for a bit, you will remember that in the past we have made 2 pairs of fairy wings and we've also done a fairy hat. And I am kind of feeling like I want to do something wearable again, something that I can wear at photo shoots or to the Ren Fair. Maybe we'll get into some home decor at a later date. I really enjoyed working with felt when I made my flower fairy hat. So I was like, what can I do that's more fall? Now, I used to play Animal Crossing New Horizons and I still absolutely love that game. And besides the fall items, the other items that were very sought after in my little circle of friends who played Animal Crossing were the mushroom items and the acorn items. And there was in fact an acorn hat. It was pretty cute, but in my opinion, it could have been better. So yeah, we're gonna be making an acorn hat, but it's not inspired by the Animal Crossing one. We're gonna do better. As per usual, I hopped on the interwebs and I found some inspiration pictures off of Pinterest. And I'm pretty sure I also referenced this creator last time when I made my flower fairy hat, but the creator is Lala Bug Designs. I definitely want to give credit. Sometimes when you find things on Pinterest, it's not tied back to the original creator, but wherever possible, I try to give people credit. And this is an absolutely beautiful acorn hat, and I'm gonna try to do it justice. Of course, I'm gonna make it my own because I believe this is felted by hand, and we're not doing that. We bought felt from Michael's. In similar fashion to the flower fairy hat, we're gonna be using hot glue and sewing and paint. Off screen, I made myself a little template so I could get it properly sized the way I wanted it. And I did this off screen because it was kind of a process, but I will explain to you how I did it. So first of all, I took one of the petals from my flower fairy hat and I kind of adjusted it. Long story short, I ended up with this here shape. So it's kind of a rounded triangle. And this is Harold. He is my stand-in noggin. And I had to put a beanie on him to match my head measurements because I have a big dome. This is essentially what I did is I made 7 or 8 of these, I can't remember. I took each piece and I pinned it down on the corners. When I used paper, I did crumple it up so it would lay a lot better to the actual head shape. You can use fabric, which is probably more ideal, but like I said, I was cutting this out so many times and messing up. I didn't want to use up all my scrap fabric. I guess I could have, after I got the shape right, I could have done it that, but anyway, so I used push pins to pin it down on the corners and started to lay it down exactly where I wanted it. And then after the entire dome was the right shape, all of that, I started to tape it together so that I could try it on my actual head because it's different when it's on a mannequin than when it's on your head, you know? Bye, Harold. This is what we're starting with. So my one tip, if you're viewing this as a tutorial, but as I always say, this is not a tutorial, this is inspiration because I have no idea what I'm doing. But if you're doing this, measure your head with a measuring tape. Get yourself one of these mannequin heads. They sell them for pretty cheap at Michael's. And then start drafting a pattern with paper, scrap paper, whatever. And then if you want to put it on fabric, you can. Ain't nobody got time for that, so I didn't. So now I have this, and what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take the shape that I have, my other template shape, and I'm going to now cut these out of felt. So however many I need of these, I'm going to cut them out and then we're going to assemble them on the mannequin head. Just like we did with the flower fairy hat, except we don't have the little loop-de-loo. It's just going to be a dome. I'm still deciding if I want to sew it or just glue it, but we're going to fly by the seat of our pants because squirrel energy.
Thank you, Mr. Exposition.
One last thing. I also made a leaf. So I have some green felt that I'm gonna make some leaves out of, and then on top of the base dome, I'm gonna cut out the little things. You'll see, just watch the video. So first step, I cut out all of my felt pieces, which I did off screen because that's not rocket science. You don't need to watch me do that. Then I went ahead and started the construction of the hat, which was pretty similar to putting together the pattern pieces. I started by pinning at the top and then pinning down at the corners. And to start out, I'm pinning the felt directly to the hat form. And as I lay down each each piece, I'm making sure to overlap just a little bit. I would say about a half an inch. This gives us some room to either glue or sew. However, if you're a sewist and you want to construct this in a different way, like you wanted to pin them right sides together like you would with a garment, especially if you're going to be doing this with a machine, totally do that. Make any alterations that you see fit, or if you think I'm doing it wrong, do that. I did eventually repin it to where it wasn't attached to the hat form so that I could try it on one more time because, you know, mistakes be made sometimes. And then here I'm adding a circular piece on the inside just to give it a little bit more structure. I did this in the flower hat as well just to give it some reinforcement. And then of course I went ahead and started hot gluing. I decided to do that instead of sewing, but you'll see we'll be getting to some sewing later. I use a high temp hot glue gun that cosplayers use, so it's pretty sturdy. And then here I'm just making a little stem for the top. And then to close it off, I hand stitched it, and of course Poppy needed to supervise and help me. Baby. Okay, so the little knobby bits, or whatever you call the little textured pieces on top of the hat, that part was a little bit more of a process. The shape that I went with is kind of similar to a guitar pick shape, and the process was having to cut all those out, but also figure out what arrangement I wanted to put them in. I started off with just lining the bottom, but then I didn't like the little empty space, so I added some smaller ones underneath. And then once I started to go up the hat, I realized I wanted to do larger pieces, so I opted for a larger size for the majority of the hat. And this part was a little bit more tedious as well because I didn't really know what kind of arrangement I wanted to put them in. I kind of did it intuitively, and I did follow kind of a reference slightly. I looked up some pictures of acorns. And then once I got up to the top, I went ahead and just glued down the stem, and then I surrounded it with these smaller shapes that I had already cut out, that I had cut out initially for the hat, and I allowed those to kind of flow into the larger shapes. And then from there, I just started gluing them down. I didn't worry about completely gluing them down. I kind of just focused on the center. I didn't want to use too much glue because I didn't want the glue to be popping out because that's kind of tacky. But then I decided to start sewing at least the top part down to make it a little bit more secure. And then I went a little crazy and I stitched all around all of the shapes, which took me forever, but I kind of wanted to do it. I like the look of the hand stitching. So I, you know, it was my decision and I'm going to stand by it. As for the leaves, I didn't really use anything too fancy, just good old-fashioned acrylic paint that I had on hand. I used a mixture of some browns with green and orange to give it a little bit of an autumnal feel, and I did have a reference, my little faux leaves from Michael's. After painting the leaves, I felt like the hat looked a little flat, so I decided to add some shading. I like how it looks with the stitching, but it did kind of flatten out the shapes a little bit, so I wanted them to pop out a bit more. So I just used some dark brown, and I lined the bottom part of the edges, blending them out ever so slightly, and sometimes I would use water to help blend it out a little bit. And then I did go over it with a slight highlight color, although it's only like one shade lighter than the actual hat. It's pretty subtle, but I think it makes a difference. And then even after painting them, I felt like they were a little bit flat, so I went around the edge and gave them a little whip stitch, pulling that tight to give it a little bit of a wavy effect. I felt like this made it look a little bit more realistic, a little bit more lifelike. And then I went ahead and added some gathering on the bottom of the leaf to kind of make it curl under. To attach the leaves, I was going to use hot glue, but last minute I decided to sew it on instead. I feel like that would be a little bit more durable. And also I didn't want to risk any hot glue spills on my finished project. I also shortened the stem because it looked stupid. And just like that, another craft is complete. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. Yes, I see some ways that I could improve in the future, like maybe the pattern that I went with to improve the overall shape of the hat to make it look more, I don't want to say realistic, but a little bit more acorny. It's a little conical, not totally, but maybe I could improve upon that. I was thinking it might be good to look into like hat forms to actually shape the hat onto if I'm going to be making more felt hats in the future, because I very much enjoy it. I like working with felt, so who knows, I might delve more into hat making. If you guys have any suggestions for other fairy-esque hats I can make made out of felt, let me know down in the comments, and any other felt related crafts that you think I should try out. I would very much appreciate suggestions. I'm always adding to my inspiration boards on Pinterest. I very much love this hat. I feel like a Cicely Mary Barker fairy or an Animal Crossing character. Although I do say my acorn hat is a bit cuter than the one from Animal Crossing, but that's just my humble opinion. Speaking of Animal Crossing, let me try something. You're kidding me. Look at him! Is that not the cutest thing you've ever seen? I can't believe it fits him. I mean, I know he kind of has a large head, but I didn't realize it was like the same size, if not bigger than mine. It is a little bit big on me, by the way. I had to put some of my extensions in to bulk up my noggin a bit. That happened last time, and I measured this time. Skill issue.
Will you wear wigs? Maybe.
But thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If this gave you some inspiration and you end up trying this out yourself, make sure you send it to me on Instagram or tag me. My DMs are kind of a hellscape, so maybe just tag me in the comments or what have you. And of course, make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe if you are not subscribed. And if you're into Fairycore stuff, Whimsigoth, thrifting, crafting, or just being a chaotic little goblin, this is your sign to subscribe and join the fam. And also if you like Animal Crossing and Fae Farm and Stardew Valley and all that stuff, all the cozy stuff. It kind of looks like I'm choking him. Sorry, Philby. On that note, I will see you in the next one. Say bye-bye, Filbert.
Thanks for the walnuts.